what are your thoughts on intersectionality?
Um, I see the point in talking about intersectionality. I see the point in a lot of left wing ideas, a lot of like woke
Hmm.
social justice ideas. I just feel that the way that they adhere to them, like a religion, is where it starts to go south.
Right.
So, yes, it is harder to have a disability and be transgender.
Hmm.
Um, but you can be transgender and very successful,
Hmm.
and not be disadvantaged just because of this intersection of
Hmm.
characteristics. I feel like it boils people down to their race and their gender, more than we need to be doing that.
Hmm.
And it also disallows for help for white cis men,
Hmm. Hmm.
who might be struggling with homelessness or drug
Hmm. Or
addiction
just other
or
things,
domestic
yeah.
violence.
Hmm.
And
You can
so
never
it
know.
takes attention away from that in a huge way. And yeah, it's a religion.
Right.
It's
I,
almost
I
like a
agree.
magic
I,
trick.
I think the idea of intersectionality is important and good and it makes sense and I kind of agree with it if you talk about it as an idea. But when you look to apply this to normal people and every person and the way in which feminists carry about in on the internet and in groups and they try to apply it to people, this is a problem because that's not how I think the idea was meant to be used. I think you
Yeah,
can say, on a whole, this group of people face certain disadvantages, and this is real. But you can also say that everyone is an individual. We don't judge people. We don't judge people, and we don't
yeah,
assign privilege or disadvantages to individuals without first knowing them or being in a somehow an internet a relationship with the person well enough to know enough about them to say whether or not they are privileged or not. We can say that this group feels this faces this problem more often, this group feels, but just please don't do it to individuals and don't use it, you know, like as a you don't
mm-hmm.
use it against people. It's also really cruel to use it against people because
Yeah. It's
you
your
exactly, and you are
opinion is
never
invalid.
responsible for your group. All of these groups
Yes.
are by chance. You know, the groups that I belong to, I
Mm-hmm.
belong to these groups by chance. I am not responsible for the actions of my group.
Yes.
So to use it against people in a negative way to say you have privilege, this is also something that is just so it is hurtful and it's not nice. It doesn't make sense. It's just mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and
Yep.
you can't confuse people with the it's too complicated. They've made it so, it's very complicated what feminists want. Of course they don't even know.
There's a lot of language that you're supposed to use as well, and there's a lot of language you're not supposed to use.
Yeah,
It's very
well, it's a
like,
big group so
this
they
is the
don't all
list of
agree.
words that are acceptable. This is the list of words that make you a bad person. If you
Right.
say those words, you're a bad person. These words are the only acceptable words, and that's why the whole obsession with gender, the whole obsession with the subgroups of people that get tinier and tinier and tinier and tinier. Like, I understand everybody deserves to have an identity and they deserve to go with that identity, but if you it's like you're choking culture by forcing everybody to follow along with this language that you put out there, and then if you don't use the language, you're immediately tossed onto a pile of like egregious, horrible, disgusting human beings. And that is just too black and white. It doesn't foster debate. It doesn't foster intellectual discussion. If I say, like, my uncle used the word tranny, and my his child who was transgender freaked out and didn't talk to him for like 6 years, but like, he wasn't being anti-trans when he said it. It was the structure of the sentence. He just casually said a word he didn't realize was wrong. And so they put too much emphasis on language, too much emphasis on um, upholding this very strict linguistic code for the way people should behave. It's very authoritarian, but they will never see that it's authoritarian.
Mm.
So it's just frustrating to be online. I am centrist and libertarian and liberal and kind of all over the place. And
Mm-hmm,
just to
mm-hmm,
see the way liberal society functions is scary to me
mm-hmm.
sometimes.
I agree.
And
Liberal
a
society
lot of what they
needs.
have to say has a big kernel of truth in it. Like,
Right.
yeah, transgender people need protections and help and the ability to identify however they want. Yes, lesbian and gay people and bisexual and pansexual people struggle because of their identity. Yes, Black people definitely have been oppressed and we deal with systemic racism. Like, all of this stuff is true.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they go about talking about it and proportioning people's purity and goodness based on their race and gender and how they fit into this structure is so frustrating. And it just makes it hard to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah, I agree.